What's up, everybody? Hope everyone is having a great evening. I'm with my co-host Brad, and we got Marsh from the Fours Up podcast. Marsh, thank you so much for coming on, man, for taking time out of your evening. I greatly appreciate it. You're killing it on your podcast, man. You and Jordan. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys having me. I'm excited.
Of course, my brother. This is Mr. Marsh, Mr. Marshall Thomas, aka Hurricanes Marsh, aka put your favorite player hashtag to Miami, and it pretty much happens. So shout out to my brother, man. I'm glad you're finally on the show, and shout out to you and Jordan for bringing that great content with the Fours Up podcast.
Appreciate you guys. You guys are killing it here too. So all about supporting each other.
Always.
Hey, Marsh, man, last scrimmage we had last year, everyone was really excited. It's kind of that build up to the Orlando scrimmage. What were your first thoughts about, this fall's first scrimmage that we've seen so far? Kind of, just the stat line, and maybe did Miami kind of surpass your expectations, or, did you expect those scrimmage results?
Looking back at the scrimmage and just seeing the stats, I think I was pretty impressed by De'Ara King, 4 touchdown passes, and was pretty good moving the football. Really impressed with Jalen Knighton, 126 yards rushing. Chaney added another 57. So I wasn't surprised at the offense because I think we all kind of expected it to be improved. And so that was a very, very good sign. And, we hear that the offensive line is getting a lot better, and they're close to having that first team. So the defense, a lot of people are saying that the defense got torn up, but I mean, they were still able to get to the quarterback. Chance Williams had a couple sacks. Sam Brooks had a sack. Marcus Clark had a pick. So all in all, I think, we're still trying to figure out the kinks at defensive line, because I know Roche did not play this past weekend, but he will this week. So there's a few questions that need to be answered for this Saturday.
Marsh, man, me and you are two guys that heavily talk about Jalen Knighton and the expectations that we have for a kid like that, so young, already coming on a green tree. It seems like he's already doing things that all of us expected, if not more. What's another player that you expected a lot from, and they're actually proving that they're actually meeting those Marsh Thomas expectations?
That's a good question. I think you can. You know what? I'm going to go with Gervin Hall at safety. I don't know if you're asking for a specific, like a freshman, but I've been talking up Gervin Hall since the beginning of last year, especially with him and Bubba Bolden. I love Bubba Bolden, and so Manny said that Gervin played his best scrimmage at the Miami Hurricane this past weekend. I think he led the team in tackles. So, just more consistency in the secondary. With him, because he's one of the leaders back there. They don't have Trajan Bandy and some of these other guys. So, Gervin is going to have to step up and be one of the leaders on the team. So he's been impressing me so far.
Yeah, you talk about leaders, Marsh, and you're just bringing up the safeties, but a guy that I thought stood out was Bradley Jennings. You talk about leaders in that linebacker group. We really all only assumed that Zach McLeod was going to be that senior, pretty much holding these freshmen, redshirt freshmen accountable, guys like Avery Huff, Sam Brooks. But it's starting to look like maybe it could be Bradley Jennings that holds that spot. So now we have a little bit more leadership. You talk about a guy that's been in the program for 4 years under Manny Diaz's defense already, so he's very familiar. He's finally getting healthy. So I think we're starting to create a little bit more depth at linebacker too. What do you think about Bradley Jennings stepping up?
I was pretty surprised when I first saw that, because I know him and, guys like Wayman Steed, they've been battling injuries since they've come to Miami. And going into this year, I don't think a lot of people paid attention to, those guys like him, Steed, Joyner, just because injuries and things like that, they were more looking towards the Avery Huff, the Sam Brooks, seeing if Corey Flagg or Tyreek Austin Cave can play as true freshmen. But when we were doing interviews after practice yesterday, Zach McLeod just went off about Bradley Jennings, which is really cool to hear. And so, and that he's been, going with the first team defense. So I was definitely surprised, but I think it's a good surprise. That just means another guy is recovered well from an injury and he's showing out to play.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the linebacker position unit, that was definitely a group. A lot of people were kind of worried about what, depth wise. We did have a lot of injuries. Zach McLeod was returning. He is going to be leading, the group. But then you have the rest a little bit unknown. Sam Brooks is a rising sophomore. He has a ton of upside. Avery Huff as well. Very good player out of St. Thomas Aquinas. Is going to be his first year playing in college football. But then again, the Bradley Jennings, the Wayman Steeds, Patrick Joiners, they did not play a lot. In the past, they really did get a lot of injuries. So it's nice to hear, a lot of players improving, such as Bradley Jennings, Wayman Steed. It's providing depth that we need. Now, do you guys think, is a lot of people, and it's outside noise, it's not the fan base, do you think, our defense, do you think it will take a hit from this past season, or are we going to get better and improve? Remember, Blake Baker is the new defensive coordinator. It's going to be his second year. There was a lot of, I felt like miscommunication, from the field back to the sideline, a lot of frustration. I think Trajan Bandy showed a lot of frustration on the field with communication with the sideline. Do you guys think, this defense as a whole can take the next step under Blake Baker?
You want to go first, Marsh, or you want me to?
I'll let you go first.
So I think it could take a hit, but I don't think the drop off would be that dramatic. I think when you look at most Cane fans that look at our team, our defense has been the standing point, right? You talk about a top 20, top 25 defense every single year the past 3-4 years under Manny Diaz. So this year, let's just say they do have a drop off, which I could possibly see it only because our offense is going to be running so many more plays. So that creates more opportunities, not only for our offense to score more and quicker, but that also is going to make more time on defense for guys to be on the field. I think the drop off, if there is some, will be a little, not too much, where when you look at the opposite end on offense, not the drop off, but the climax from what we were to what we're about to be is going to be so much bigger. It's going to overtake so much other things that we're talking about on defense, where even if we go from a top 25 defense to, let's say, top 35, top 40, we're still going to be fine. Our offense is finally going to put up averaging 30, 35 points a game. You're talking 9-10 games easy, not to mention we got a kicker now. So that's your 10 games right there.
Oof, you're cocky tonight, Brad. Yeah. But on the defense, because I've had a lot of people ask me this, this offseason, and this was even before Gregory Rousseau left. But they were just asking, if I was worried about this defense, because Blake Baker, I think he improved towards the end of the year, but definitely in the first half, he had some interesting play calls, interesting blitz packages. But I think you also have to look at a lot of the people that we're bringing back on defense, guys like Blades and Ivy, healthy Bubba Bolden, healthy Nesta Silvera, Gervin Hall is back. And so, and Zach McLeod. And so I think our defense, I keep telling people that I don't worry about our defense at all. If it's a Manny Diaz defense, I don't. I know that our defense isn't going to lose us games, unless it's 4th and 17. But but I think that this defense, even without Rousseau, with Phillips and Roche, I still think that we could be like a top 15, top 10 defense. If there is a drop off, I think it's very, very slight.
No, I mean, that's a great point. We are losing Gregory Rousseau, which is our best player, I feel like personally, on this whole team. I mean, he's going to be a top 5 pick ultimately in this upcoming draft. But, luckily, defensive end Javari Harvey is an up-and-coming player that we really haven't seen a lot of because he hasn't, gotten as many snaps as he should. And he has the possibility to start this upcoming season, and Jalen Phillips as well, alongside Quincy Roche. I mean, that's like a 3-headed monster right there. So,
and not to mention, you talk about young talent, talk about guys we haven't even seen yet. Cam Williams, that's a guy that Greg Russo talked about in his interview with Andrew Ivins, that he kind of reminds him of Cam Williams his freshman year coming on to Green Tree. And I mean, we're already hearing great things about him. Who's to say he doesn't kind of break out and be like that fourth or fifth guy? You got another guy like Chance Williams as well, Elijah Roberts. You got a lot of guys who are really going to break out. I think, in my opinion, I think it's the guys that we've been waiting to break out. Guys like Nesta Silvera, guys like, not Gervin Hall, but maybe trying to think, maybe like a DJ Ivy to take that next step, be like elite, things like that. I think those are the guys we have question marks. And then like Marsh pointed earlier, man, we got so many guys who we relied on last year. Even a small dose of Bubba Bolden before he got hurt was just tremendous for this football team. So now that you finally got healthy guys and the right coaching staff on the opposite side of the field, it should be exciting.
Marsh, do you think, I know Coach Banda, he in an interview with the Miami Herald, he said, hey, we're going to play the five best defensive backs out there, in the backfield. Do you feel like we can see more than two safeties this upcoming season?
I don't know. That's a very good question. I think Avonte Williams could have helped out in that situation a little bit. I had him breaking out as a true freshman, playing some nickel, things like that. But I think we're going to see a lot of Takori Couch this year because, today we were talking to Coach Rump today, and he said he still doesn't have like the starting cornerbacks picked out and anything like that. And so I think there's a lot of question marks in the secondary, not concerning question marks, but just ones that'll, provide Coach Baker with playing the best athletes in the secondary. And if it means, play, two safeties, three safeties, I think it's I really like the athletes that we have on defense.
Definitely. And you talk about the corners. You got to Corey Couch as well, like we mentioned, but then you even got a guy like Amari Carter where we don't know if he's going to be at a striker. So that could be a position where you might have three safeties on the field. And then you look at what we have recruiting in the future. I think that's what we're lining up to do, is to have multiple safeties. Because, in the future, you could possibly have Avonte Williams, Keontre Smith, Cam Kitchens, James Williams, all on the field at the same time. Yeah. And that is ridiculous. And that is a lot of talent. That's a lot of athlete. That's a lot of speed. I don't know where you throw that football to where it doesn't get picked off or a guy's head knocked off.
I don't even know where you line those guys up, on the field. I think that's the bigger question.
It's crazy. Like, you look at the safety position unit, like when was the last time we've had this much depth at that position? When was the last time we've had this amount of depth at defensive end as well? Like it really is nice to see that we have elite depth, where we can match up with the elites in the Power 5 level. That's something I'm looking forward to. But do you guys think the Avonte Williams sitting out this year due to his health injury, do you think that's going to make a big impact in this safety group? Or, it's kind of like, hey, like it's not going to be that big of a deal. And he's just going to pick up where he left off next year against Alabama.
I don't think so, man. I'll put the analogy like this. Marsh and you don't have kids yet, but I got a 3-year-old, and it's like getting that brand new bicycle and you got the wrong helmet. And we already had the bicycle. We got Ed Reed. We got all these other guys coming to us. We thought we got the right helmet, but we just got the wrong color. We're not able to wear the helmet right now in fashion, but next year we'll be able to get the right helmet. He'll be coming back to us. I don't think a lot of fans relied on Avonte Williams. If you really look at this team, and we've been loaded up at the striker / safety position for a couple of years now, and we're like I mentioned just a few minutes ago with the guys I mentioned, we're continuing to do that. So losing a guy like Avonte Williams for a year, it's a low blow, but it's not going to hurt this team. I just think someone else is going to have to step up. And like we just talked about earlier with Mike Rump talking, Marcus Clark. Marcus Clark is a perfect example of a true freshman that we all thought he would pretty much be really good at just special teams for right now. but he's already popping up as a good corner for us. So I mean, I think it really just depends on the defensive scheme we run compared to who we're playing on offense. I think that's what's going to make us so great is we have so much athletes at the safety and striker position to where there's going to be certain opportunities where if the tight end is the best player on the opposite team, we might have to put in a striker instead of a nickel corner, or other positions where you might have too many good wide receivers and not really a good running game. So you got to line up more corners on the secondary, not too many linebackers. So I think this defense is really diverse. I think Coach Baker is going to take that next step just because it's another year under Manny Diaz. I think Manny Diaz will have a little bit more freedom to kind of dive into the defense just because now we have not only one offensive coordinator, but we have 3 offensive coordinators on the staff now. You got Coach Justice, Coach Likens, Coach Lashley. All these guys know how to run an offense. I mean, it's going to be a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. When I say, I picked Avonte and Jalen Knight as the 2 true freshmen that I saw really contributing this year, just because I think Avonte and Jalen, Jalen obviously, but Avonte I think was in that same level athletically coming in as a true freshman. And I don't think we would have been relying on him, but he would have been a good choice there. I think it just means that Amari Carter's just going to have to step up, even more. Yeah. I think Hall and Bubba Bolden are going to have to hold down that safety spot even more. And I think the secondary, they have a lot to prove this year, especially with, the up and down year that Ivy had. And with all this talk about Rumph. And I think that a lot of people are looking at the secondary this season and expecting a big year. So, but I'm not worried. Avonte going out, it sucks because, he's a good kid, but it doesn't deteriorate you from, saying that Miami could win 9-10 games this year. 8. I say 8, but.
No. Speaking on your eight thing, let's go to one of the predictions, one of the score predictions that you had on one of your Fours Up podcasts, man. Let's talk about this Virginia Tech score prediction where I believe you had Virginia Tech beating us.
I've been saying, dude, I've said all off season I think Tech is going to beat us.
Oh man,
really? Why Virginia Tech?
I really don't have that great of a reason. Va Tech just scares the hell out of me, and we've always had a hard time playing them. The fact that it's in Blacksburg and obviously them losing Farley, the cornerback, is going to be big. And but those are the kind of games where, especially in Blacksburg, me as a fan, in my lifetime going into Virginia Tech, I've never felt confident. And so this is kind of the same situation. I think we very well could win. I think we should win. I think who's their quarterback? Hooker or whatever his name is?
Yeah.
I don't think he's okay, but I don't think anybody on that team really jumps out at you. And Bud Foster's not there anymore. And so
and then you talk about another
I'm talking myself out of my prediction now.
That's what I'm saying, man. You got to. I thought about it. I'm like, dude, we got Virginia Tech handled. I'm not worried about Virginia Tech. Now, the Wake Forest one you were worried about, I was too. But now we talk about guys that have declared out. Talk about a kid like Surratt. That changes things. I saw you tweet that earlier, and I definitely agree with you. That was a game where I had circled Wake Forest could definitely pull some upsets. But a guy like him not playing, that changes a lot. He's a big factor.
Well, especially teams like Wake Forest. They don't have Jamie Newman anymore, so that receiver, whatever the hell his name was, but he was their whole offense, because he was one of the best receivers in the entire country, and so him going out, it helps us a lot. So I may have to revisit that.
Am I crazy? Just let me know if I am. Am I crazy to think that Florida State has a chance to upset? I'm going to say upset Miami at home, and here's why I think this way. When Florida State came down to Miami a couple years ago, N'Kosi Perry, was our starting quarterback under center. We were down by 21-28. DeAndre Francois was their quarterback. That stadium was sold out. Okay, no doubt about it. Sold out Hard Rock Stadium with the crowd in our favor. Our team, they feed off of that emotion. Empty stadium, let's say Florida State takes the lead, same situation. They're up by 3 touchdowns. I feel like that could play in favor of Florida State. It's a similar team, bad offensive line. James Blackman, he's a solid quarterback. He's not bad. He's not great. He's just solid.
Yeah.
You know, but the offensive line is awful. They have a good defensive line. It's not bad.
I was going to say, you were just talking bad, and all I kept thinking about was that offensive line for Florida State.
For State of U, I just did the game preview for Miami against FSU, so I dove deep into the Seminole roster, and I mean, I really like Terry at wide receiver. I really like him. I think Marvin Wilson's pretty good. Then they have a few good DBs. They have a good cornerback and a good safety. I don't remember their names, but
they got Asante Samuel.
Yeah, that guy.
Good.
I don't think I've ever been more confident heading into a season like when you think about FSU than this year.
Yeah,
like if we lose, especially if we get down by like a few scores, that is because we are beating ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about that 2018 game against FSU, like we had a punt return comeback. We, had a 4th down conversion failed at our own 40-yard line. So it's talent-wise,
it's nowhere close.
We are so much higher than them. Like James Blackman is
on paper, on 10-second TikTok clips, on 15-second Instagram videos. I don't care what social media platform it's on. You look at practice of Florida State and you look at practice of Miami. It's 2 completely different scenarios. It's not even close, man. I understand it's a rivalry game and it should be close, but in my eyes, a lot of the times it came down to coaching, and our coaching was very poor, and our game decisions, trying to adjust, especially in rival games, weren't really that good unless it was Manny Diaz by himself. And you look at this offensive staff, and I see nothing but, like I mentioned earlier, game changers, guys that are going to be able to easily know what to do. And I think even if our defense starts to give up a little bit, you're going to see Manny Diaz kind of take the reins and do what he does best.
Well, and also I think that, just like Paul was saying, that in this game, especially Miami, Florida State, there's a lot of coaching mistakes, but I think a lot of it comes down to the emotion that you were talking about. It's an emotional rivalry game. Right. So, things could happen like that. And, we've seen hundreds of times in this rivalry where a ball bounces one way and Florida State ends up winning or Miami ends up winning. So talent-wise, I think we should win the game by like 2 touchdowns.
Right.
I mean, Marvin Wilson, he's good, but he didn't do anything against us last year. Donaldson bullied him. So he's good. But
speaking of Donaldson and offensive line, Marvin Wilson, what was your thoughts, Marsh, on seeing Zion Nelson pretty much potentially take over that left guard position?
That was interesting.
Well, I wasn't that shocked because he's bulked up to I think it's 310 pounds or something like that. But athletic 310 pounds. They're not going to have you put on that weight in this offense if you can't keep up with the tempo which they're running. But apparently Ousmane Traore was at left guard, first team on the scrimmage. And that's a guy that I have been talking a lot about ever since he came to Miami. And, back in the spring, I thought that he could contend for the starting spot at guard. And so I was kind of surprised that our boy Ja'Kai wasn't out there at guard, but I like Traore at guard, and honestly, the other 4 guys, if Zion's starting at guard, I'm fine with that. I know a lot of people like to bash Zion Nelson, but they don't really understand the kind of position he was put in last year. I think he can be a solid starter in the future. And so whether it's Zion or Ousmane or Ja'Kai, I like the way that our offensive line is being set up right now.
For sure, man. You talk about our boy Ja'Kai, and I definitely thought he was going to end up taking that left guard position when we first started the whole camp. But knowing that we have other options to put in there and they are more comfortable with having those guys and have Ja'Kai be that solidified backup center because he is the only other center on the football team. So if Gaynor was to ever get hurt, Ja'Kai has to be that guy. So I think the fact that we're able to rely on a couple more guys at that left guard spot tells me that either coaching is there or these kids are really taking that next step. And I think at the end of the day, it's a win-win because now you're talking about your second group of offensive linemen is now Ja'Kai Clark, Jalen Rivers, Isaiah Walker, maybe Zion Nelson, maybe Ja'Kai Clark, or a couple other guys. I mean, that's almost another full starting five right there. And then we already got a good solidified offensive line for the following class. So we're starting to build depth that's actually quality. And it's not just guys that are just with their names on the back of their jersey that have no benefit of being on the football team.
You're putting these offensive linemen in a system that they can succeed in a whole lot better than our last offensive coordinator. I mean, you could put Jonathan Ogden there on the offensive line, but if they're running a 12-second play action, screen that we ran about 500 times last year, he's not going to be able to protect the quarterback. And so, with Red Lashley, the ball's coming out so quick, and it's a system that favors an offensive line. And so, a lot of people are worried, and rightfully so. I mean, they were god awful last year at offensive line, but to put it nicely.
We had to go max protection every play, I felt like.
Dude, that power, I'm telling you, man, that power spread that we're going to have now is going to make it to where these offensive line, instead of these big old guys that have no fast feet pulling to the opposite side, now they're just going to be creating holes with that fast up tempo. And I mean, Lashley has said it, man. He's still going to go to this Gus Malzahn heavy run that's going to, especially with a guy like De'Aaron King that can run and pass, he's going to use that to his advantage. And I mean, just in the scrimmage, I know it's a scrimmage, but combined, we had almost 300 rushing yards, and De'Aaron King didn't do much. Cam Harris, I don't even think played. 300 rushing yards is already way better than what we averaged last year as a rushing group. We were last in the ACC.
That's like more than double what we averaged last year.
We were last in the ACC in runs average last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think we were 120th in rushing. So
that was awful.
We can only go up.
What I appreciate the most is that De'Aaron King is probably the best dual threat quarterback in college football. So if the pocket breaks down, you have a natural runner under center. He was a wide receiver at Houston early in his career. You have an athlete. So even if our offensive line, isn't what we expected, but there is some improvement, you still have a great runner at quarterback, where there were plenty of times last season where Jaron Williams refused to run. Refused to stay in the pocket, and he was just looking to throw. It was like, dude, just take off and run for a first down. So
you've seen it previous too, man. I know this is Marsh's boy, but Brad Kaya is another prime example, man. Brad Kaya was one of those guys where as soon as that pocket collapsed a little bit, it felt like he had sandbags on his ankles, man. I mean, he was one of the best passers that have ever been in a Hurricane uniform, no doubt about it. Accuracy was was way above most. He had the talent, the brains. It's just, between the offensive line, the play calling, and just the movement of him in the pocket. This is a really good argument. I brought it up on Twitter a while ago, and I could see both points of view. But I honestly don't think Brad Kaya that 2017 season would get us to what Malik Rozier did, just because of what Malik Rozier did with his feet. And in certain situations and certain games, I understand in the opposite where we probably wouldn't have even been in that situation because Kaya would have already saw that read or whatnot. I understand that. But there were so many clutch moments where we needed a guy to run the ball with his feet. People forget Mark Walton was injured. Amon Richards was injured. Chris Herndon was injured. We had a lot of guys that were injured. And this guy, being a baseball player, did what he did with his feet, man. And he won a lot of football games. He took over a lot of games with his feet, ended up being the second leading rusher on our football team that year. So I give him a lot of credit for that. But
and when and I love Malik Rozier. I appreciate everything that he did for Miami, especially just in that 2017 season. And they overachieved that year. There were a few games where, and I think you bring up a good point, because obviously Rozier made some great throws, against Florida State, against, I'm trying to think of other great throws he made, but I'm sure he did. There are other ones, but you also think about, because I think Rozier was there was a stat against FSU in the first half, he was like 3 for 22 passing.
I don't doubt it.
And so, and when Kaya went up to Tallahassee, he was putting up over 400 yards. And so you give Kaya the defense that Rozier had in 17. I don't know, maybe.
Kaya's freshman year, that offensive line was great. That was a pretty solid offensive line. He had a great wide receiver core around him as well, with Philip Dorsett leading the way.
So the only question I have is, and I only have this question only because of shout out to the Orange Bowl boys for having this Malik Rozier episode. But just hearing from Malik Rozier of how dry that Mark Richt playbook was and the game planning before a football game, me personally, I think Brad Kaya is just too smart for that, and I feel like Mark Richt wouldn't have given Brad Kaya the value that he deserves, if that makes sense. I don't think we ever would have saw the peak of a Brad Kaya only because of the offense that he would have been given. Now you put him in the Rhett Lashley playbook, oh my goodness, it's over. But I don't know. That's a questions obviously, because you look at John Richt as your quarterback coach. Come on.
But I will say this, Brad. I think we saw Kaya's performance improve vastly under Mark Richt's offense after the Notre Dame loss. I felt like after that, man, our offense was just clicking. And David Njoku was more involved as well. So I felt like, I don't know what happened. It just completely changed. And I felt like Mark Richt saw something maybe when he was down by a lot of points against Notre Dame in the second half to change the offense. Unfortunately, we never saw that offense again. But I felt like Brad Kaya did very well. And that was probably Miami's best offense we saw in quite a while. It was very efficient after the Notre Dame loss.
Yeah. He finished the season with like 27 touchdowns, like 3,600 passing yards. And it was like after that Notre Dame loss, and they started going to more of a shotgun, getting Amon Richards the ball more. And you watch those games when we played like Duke or West Virginia in the bowl game, and we haven't scored like that since.
Yeah, man, definitely. And we talk about these quarterbacks, man, but we were like, every quarterback we had was always missing something. It was either they didn't have the brains, or they didn't have the legs, or they didn't have the arm and accuracy, or they just didn't have the it factor. It was always something. You got Brad Kaya, you got Morris, you got all these guys. Now you have a guy like Derek King, where everybody is boasting about this. Like, Manny Diaz is not shy about putting all the expectations and what Derek King is doing to this football program, because they haven't seen it. They haven't witnessed something that Derek King brings to a football program. We finally have a quarterback and a leader, someone who leads by example on and off the football field. And dude, we talk about Derek King right now, but potentially we talk about some other great guys, and that's Marsh's boy, Jake Garcia. I know he hasn't brought the hashtag back out yet, but it's coming. I think it's coming soon, because things are heading in the right direction, it seems like.
Yeah. It's been a crazy few months with Jake and just his recruitment, because I know that he loves Miami, and he's close with guys like Khalil Brantley, Romello Brinson, James Williams. I know those guys love Jake. They want him as their quarterback. And, it's one thing for fans to do this, these hashtags and everything like that. But when you have a guy like a James Williams, Romello Brinson saying, hey, like tweeting saying, hey, come be our quarterback, and saying, how bad they want him.
Yeah.
I've always had a little sense of confidence that it's going to happen. I don't know when. I don't know when it's going to happen. Hopefully something happens soon. Now that he's in Georgia and Valdosta, but I think he's a very, very good quarterback. I think the hype matches the talent. I think he could come in and maybe not play right away year one, but he could be, a starter for multiple years at Miami. And I know he really likes Rhett Lashley as well. So, and USC, I don't know. Like I since I'm a West Coast guy, I'm always hearing about USC and just their situation. I think Helton is really on the hot seat, and I don't really like him as head coach at USC, and so I think they're going to struggle once again this season. And
Right.
they took Miller Moss, another 2021 quarterback. So I know Jake wasn't that fond of that. So we'll see. We'll see.
Hey, Marsh,
Yeah.
do you think it's concerning at all, or maybe it's just complete white noise? If, Jake Garcia, he does jump from like high school to high school every year. He moved to Valdosta, Georgia. We've seen in college football, like when players don't get the nod their freshman year, they tend to just jump in the transfer portal. It's becoming the free agency of college football. Do you think that's kind of a red flag for recruits that jump to different high schools every year? Or maybe that's just the modern day college football and, hey, there's nothing really to worry about?
Well, I think you have to look at, each commit, with their own situation, because Jake, he went to Valdosta because they're not playing high school football in California. Other guys that switch high schools every single year, maybe there's something, a little bit more to that. But I think if there was an issue with Jake, then I feel like we wouldn't be recruiting him as hard, because I think Manny Diaz really takes that into account, especially with the locker room issues that Miami's had over the past few years. Yeah. So everyone that I've talked to, and they're big fans of Jake as a person and obviously as a quarterback. So, but I think in today's age, I think that is a big problem with a lot of players. They're not getting that instant, playing time, and they don't understand that sometimes you're going to have to wait. Like, you could go somewhere else and play, but it may not be a right situation. You don't want to be changing, schools like that so often, because that messes up the locker room, and you have to build these relationships over and over again. But some kids just don't want to wait. So
yeah, and he's just a few more miles closer to Miami when it's all said and done. He went from already being in California to, let's think about it like this. I understand he wanted to play football, but if you're a 5-star guy like Jake Garcia, you could pretty much go anywhere in the country. You already live in California, and you're talking about you're only going to play football for a few months, and then right in December, January, you're going right back to California. You are already living there. So the fact that you're traveling and you're about to go live in Georgia, which is only it's only 6-7 hours away from Miami. That is a lot more closer to where, instead of you on Instagram Live and all this thing with all these other recruits that are from Miami trying to get you, now you can actually go hang out with them every other weekend in person. Now it's not no live Instagram over the phone. Now you're actually being with these people in person. So it's just one step closer to hopefully being a Miami Hurricane. And I think a guy like him, man, that's an elite talent that we haven't had at quarterback in a while, similar to De'Aaron King. Just does something completely different, obviously, on the football field, but just the caliber of guys. And hey, you talk about Alabama, first game of the season. That's a nice recruiting tool, along with Ed Reed.
Yeah. But and also, I already mentioned this, but I think you have to take into account the relationship that Garcia has with some of these other 2021 Miami commits, because they go into if Garcia commits, they go right into Miami. They're already close. They already have this bond, and I think that'll do wonders for the chemistry and the culture at Miami. And it's an incredible class already, but they just need a quarterback, and I don't think there's really a second option. I don't know if anyone really wants a second option.
So here's my thing. I got two things for you, Paul. Before you say something, Paul, my bad.
Yeah, go for it.
Marsh, I got two things for you. One, is there really another option out there realistically for this class? Because we saw Milroe just flip to Alabama, so we know that's out the window. It was really just Milroe and Garcia.
Wow. That came out of nowhere for me.
Yeah. I saw it trending a little bit. I saw it heading in that direction, but I think those were the only two realistic options. You look at the 2021, Lashley's already looking at guys for 2022. So I think those were the only two options on the board, in my opinion. Plus, we have other guys at other positions. I know Marsh is a big fan of Chase Smith. That's one guy, along with Amari Daniels. So, that's two guys right there that we're trying to go at. And then I think that leaves you like maybe one or two spots left. But we talk about quarterbacks needing one. What is the possibility? I want to ask both of y'all. what is the realistic possibility of De'Aaron King playing for the Hurricanes 2 seasons? We talk about what just came out recently today with the NCAA pretty much allowing all these athletes to pretty much take this year as a gimme to where it doesn't count as anything. So now you talk about guys like Bubba Bolden, like John Ford, a bunch of guys, Mike Harley, De'Aaron King, guys that can all take another year to potentially play for the Miami Hurricanes another year and play against Alabama. Why would you not want to play against Alabama to cap it off?
Yeah,
you go ahead, Marsh.
No, you go ahead. I gotta collect my phone.
The way I see it, I think De'Aaron King will come back. I really do. But if this season ends up happening, what we're noticing in Major League Baseball, like the Marlins were supposed to play the Mets. Guess what? The game is postponed. It's not going to happen. If this season becomes literally just a mess with the positive results, canceling games because of huge outbreaks, and we can only get 8 games in. There's not even a conference championship. Just the whole season is just paused. Just things like that. I really think De'Aaron King can come back next year for a full year in a packed house. But if De'Aaron King puts on a show against Clemson and we play 11 games and let's say he wins the Heisman Trophy, he's actually third best overall odds.
Yeah.
He actually is.
He is.
So if he wins the Heisman Trophy, throws for 300 yards against Clemson, goes for 100 rushing yards against Clemson, which he's capable of. Hey, you're going to put him probably in a very good situation to get drafted as an athlete. A lot of people already like him as a wide receiver at the next level. So, no, I think he can come back next year, but the season, in a sense, has to be very modified and not complete itself.
Yeah, I think we all want to think and believe that De'Aaron King will come back just because it sounds so incredible, him and Rhett Lashley for 2 years. And but yeah, I kind of agree with you. The only way that I see him coming back is if the season is paused and put on hold. Because like guys like him and Roche, like they're working on their draft stock this year, and so this is a huge season for them. And if that bag year, we play like 3 games, 4 games, even 2 games, and then everything pauses, I could possibly see De'Aaron coming back. I think it also has to do with that he's made already such a huge impact on this locker room and on this team. I think that could be a very big selling point if something arises that, he'd want to come back. But, the way that people, when we interview, coaches and players after practices, the way they talk about De'Aaron is I've never heard Miami coaches and players talk about their quarterback in such a high regard and with such, respect. And I know these guys love De'Aaron, and I could see him coming back, but I think it'll have to take a few situations for that to happen.
Yeah, the way his teammates and coaches talk about him, like Marsh just said, I mean, it's something that almost seems like they're talking about a head football coach or something.
Yeah.
Just a guy that he just is a difference maker. He just changes everything completely. And these Florida Gators got all these short jokes, man, but the kid's a difference maker, man. Everybody on the football team, even Manny Diaz, has said this guy puts balls on the money that you really can't teach. And with his athleticism, there's no way around it, man. You're gonna have to play the run and the pass every single down, and that is something that Miami football has never had at quarterback, where you literally have to worry about the run and the pass every single time.
Well, and also
have an offense that can do it.
Think about this: if hypothetically, if you were to come back, Trevor Lawrence would be gone.
Yeah.
So the ACC is a little bit more wide open.
It is. It is.
I don't know. My mind's racing.
Are we ever going to win the ACC title? I mean, do you guys
maybe not
an ETA of when this is going to happen? Because at some point, I mean, we're bound to win it, right?
at some point we have to win the ACC. With the run that Clemson's on right now, I know we all want to hype up the Canes, and I want them to do well every single season, but you also have to realize that Dabo's got a powerhouse over there. Yeah. That I don't see them stopping anytime soon. So, but Miami had to do that to Florida State in the early 2000s. Florida State was on the top of their game, and Miami had to beat them to, get over the hump and eventually become national champions. And so, I don't see us winning the ACC this year or next year, but it's coming. It's coming.
And the way it pans out too, you don't. I know this sounds bad, but you don't have to win the ACC to be a winner in college football right now. You can get your 10 wins still and not be in the ACC championship and still be a solidified good program. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what Miami needs right now. I know we all want the national championship, but 24/7 Canes mentioned a little bit a while ago, I think it's still going to be a couple of years. Still, we're starting to build quality guys year after year now. Now we just need to build the experience with the coaching, because that's what we were missing before. The Hurricanes always get the talent. We know this because we see it on Sundays every single week. We see all these guys that's NFLU. We're the only college football program that anytime an NFL player announces his name, it's the U. We don't say the University of Miami because we are different from everybody else. The difference is in the past 10, 12 years, we have not had any coaching to develop these guys the right way. Always put these kids in the wrong position, or we don't develop them until their third or fourth year and then they're out. Now we finally get the right coaching around them. It just takes time now. It's just going to be some time, but I think you could still have a successful season as a Miami Hurricane fan and not win the ACC championship.
And then that's what I'm trying to tell people, because I predicted that we go 8-3. Before the revised schedule came out, I said 9-3, and everyone was getting after me. I'm like, well, you guys, Miami fans, I know we hate the word patience, but look at how long it took Clemson to, become who they were. Dabo had some rough years. Saban went 7-6 his first year at Bama. It doesn't happen just overnight, especially with a program like Miami that has been mediocre for the last 15 years. It doesn't take just 1 year to turn the culture and everything around. Manny is realizing that right now. He's recruiting his kind of guys, and you'll build on that. And so at least I think it'll take a couple years to win the ACC, but I 100% think we're going in the right direction. And if we finish the regular season 8-3, 9-2, I would be the happiest man in Miami. I really would. I just want to feel that the culture of the program is trending in the right direction. That's that will come, and I think that is very, very important this year.
Should we buy into the UNC hype at all?
I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I look at this schedule, and even with the change of schedule, Clemson's the only team on paper that has the talent to beat us. Any other team, I'm not worried about talent-wise. And we've said this every other season. But again, I'm going back to coaching. That this is where it's all coming down to coaching. It comes down to Manny Diaz, his second year as a head coach. Has he learned from his mistakes? Does he know when to take over on defense when certain things aren't happening in a football game? Do you let Blake Baker still continue to run that defense out in coverage and cover that running back on a wheel route? Or do you get him nose in the dirt and you have to go after the quarterback like they're supposed to? And that's something that Manny Diaz is going to have to take control over if stuff like that happen. But on paper, man, this Miami team shouldn't lose a game unless it's to Clemson. I honestly think this is the year where if we play every single football game I think sky's the limit, man. I really do. I have so much faith in this football team.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. But as far as UNC goes, I really, really like Sam Howell. And Jordan and I disagree on this sometimes. But I really like Sam Howell. I think that if he wasn't in the same conference as Trevor Lawrence, or if Trevor Lawrence hadn't have done what he did as a true freshman, I think Sam Howell would have gotten a lot more hype. But other than that, I don't really – they have good receivers, and they have that former quarterback at linebacker. But other than that, they don't really jump out at me. It's just the impact of a guy like a Sam Howell. And a lot of people just think, oh, Mac Brown's coaching. Of course they're going to be good. But I predicted on the show the other night that we win by 14 points. And I thought that for a while. So I think our guys are pissed off still about the 4th and 17 game. And it's going to be the last week of the regular season. So it could be, I think Miami and UNC will go into that game in the top 25. I know UNC plays Notre Dame the week before, but that game could potentially, I don't think we make it to Charlotte this year, but I think that could be a game where, oh, don't shake your head, Brad. But it could be a game that decides, some postseason situations.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing I like about UNC, they have a very good OC. I don't know if they recall, but Philip Longo, I mean, he was at Ole Miss when they were putting up points under Hugh Freeze. Their defensive coordinator was at Army. He had a pretty solid defense. They have a solid staff. So, Sam Howell, once again, I mean, 36 touchdowns, I believe 7 interceptions or ballpark number I'm throwing out. But, that's really good as a freshman. I mean, if he can repeat that, I mean, that's a recipe for success. So they're recruiting very well. They're top 10 right now. I think they're number 7 in the nation. I mean, it's going to be either Miami or UNC to win the Coastal moving forward. One or the other is going to take over. I will say this. Mac Brown did win a national title, but, as we saw with Mark Richt, when you're kind of at that retirement not honeymoon stage, towards the end of your career, when you want to retire, a couple tough losses, some pressure from the fan base, if there even is any pressure with UNC, because basketball is our football, for them in that sense. Hey, he may just call it quits and get fed up with it. So we can stop UNC, but we have to win now.
Look, I think with UNC, they were always that team where they gave us a little bit of trouble from here and there, but from times we were able to beat them as well. But they always, like you said, they had a good coaching staff, but they always had like those it guys, those guys that Miami never had. You look at a guy like Mitchell Trubisky. You look at they always had a running back that just killed us every single year. And now you talk about Sam Howell and the coaching that they have. Well, now Miami has that. That's why I'm not worried. I think we keep forgetting that all these teams that we were once worried about every single year that used to upset us, we just weren't used to seeing that because we didn't have that. We have a it guy in Derek King. We have a offensive coordinator in Rhett Lashley. I think this is just the year where we just have to put faith in these guys. There's a reason why they're here. There's a reason why Derek King is the 3rd leading Heisman candidate right now. I mean, it honestly, in my opinion, it weighs everything on Derek King this football season. As good as Derek King will be, is as good as this football team will be this year.
Yeah, I agree. And now he actually has a defense to, help him out a little bit. He scored 50 total. He was a part of 50 total touchdowns at Houston in 1 year, and they still lost 5 games that season because, they didn't have a defense. So now you pair him up with this Canes defense with Phillips and Roche, and I would never ever say I'm skeptical, but there's always that inner 25-year-old in me where I've seen nothing but pain from the Hurricanes in my life. And so there's always that fear in me, and I have to see it. Like when we play in 3 weeks from right now, I better see a pissed off team and a team that can go up and down the field on UAB. So, but I think it does depend all on, Derek King, and same with UNC, depending on Sam Howell.
Before we get into some rapid fire, guys, how patient are we going to be with Manny Diaz? I mean, last year, I feel like we kind of forgot as a fan base how much pain we suffered. I don't know. I kind of forgot with the offseason changes once again, but how patient are we going to be with the decision-making on game days, with the wins and losses? I mean, this season, there has been no spring football at all. Is this a year not even to really acknowledge what the results are with Manny Diaz and just look forward to next year? I mean, How many years does Manny Diaz deserve for his vision?
Unfortunately, this was a pandemic, so no matter what happens this year, you're going to see Manny Diaz not get fired. I don't care how bad our season is. It's just this is a pandemic. Everybody is going through a tough time where almost every coach in the nation is going to have a pretty much a free pass. I mean, they're giving the free pass to the athletes, so why not give the free pass to the head coaches, right?
Absolutely.
It's that big of a deal. But at the end of the day, you don't give him any leeway. This is his 5th year as a defense, pretty much.
Yeah.
So our defense should be ready, no doubt. This is his 2nd year as a head coach. This is the year where we need to figure out if he has made those proper changes. I think if the Miami Hurricanes start to struggle, you need to be given patience to our offensive staff because this is all new to them. So if we do struggle, hopefully it's only on offense because this defense should not be struggling because like Marsh mentioned earlier, this is 4th, 5th year. This isn't nothing new. Well, we consistently are a top 25 defense. So it needs to be solely relied to where Manny Diaz just needs to take control when he does. If he doesn't and we start to lose some football games in close scenarios because of our defense and little mistakes, that is 100% on Manny Diaz. And that's something that looking forward, we may have to get a better head coach, but hopefully that doesn't happen.
Well, and I've said a lot. I love Manny Diaz. I loved him as defensive coordinator. I love I love offseason Manny, but I will say I'm not sold yet on him as a head coach. That's why I think this year is really, really big for him, just handling things differently. And you just have to think about, how bad last year ended and what disarray the locker room was. Like, I understand going, 6-7, but when you go 6-7 and you lose to FIU, Duke, and La Tech in the last 3 games, and you have all these reports coming out about your locker room and just all hell breaking loose, like, then I could see, like, okay, I mean, if there's another year like that, then maybe consider a change because I love Manny, but I mean, if he can't win, then what? Like,
I mean, go ahead,
bro. I was going to say, unfortunately, I think, I hope people remember this later down the road, but I think if Manny Diaz doesn't get the job done, I think we already have our future head coach on our staff. So I'm going to leave that out there. I think we already have our future head coach. And it could be Rhett Lashley. It could be Rob Likens. It could be
Rob Likens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Rob Likens. I guarantee you in about a year or two, Rob Likens will get offered a head coaching job.
All right. I'll hold you to it, Brad.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
I'll hold you to it. All right, Rob Likens. All right, very interesting. Hey, I'm with it. I hope so. If Rob Likens gets a head coaching job in a couple years, Miami will be winning a lot of football games. Let's get into rapid fire, guys. Question for the big 3 on the screen. That's it. Assuming King declares, how confident do you guys feel about the future going up against Alabama in 2021?
Oh, God. Are we already talking about this?
I feel okay. I feel like N'Kosi Perry will be our quarterback. He has already proved that he could win in big games, similar to Florida State, playing down. I think he's a guy that has always been decent. Unfortunately, he's just had the bad card dealt almost every single time, whether it be just him needing to mature or just him not getting the right opportunities or not the right play calls. I think now you're starting to see all these guys, not only the receivers, not the running backs, not the offensive line, but especially the quarterback, they're going to all start to play an offensive scheme that they're used to. N'Kosi Perry has not played in an offensive scheme like this since he was in high school, which is the reason why he got that University of Miami offer. So now you're going to see N'Kosi Perry who's a lot more comfortable, a lot more mature. I think unless Tyler Van Dyke literally is just that guy and he ends up doing some incredible things next offseason and D'Eriq King doesn't come back, I think N'Kosi Perry is our quarterback, and I feel somewhat confident. You can't feel too confident, obviously, because you're going against Alabama, but it's as close as confidence as you can get.
I mean, I I don't like. I wouldn't say that I'm confident going into the game. Like I think I view it as the way I view the Clemson game this year. I just don't want to see us lose big. Like I want us to be competitive with Alabama and make it somewhat close of a game because, I mean, yeah, we're Miami, but I mean Alabama. Like I have a lot of respect for Coach Saban and what he's done there. So beating them is like a huge deal in my eyes. And I also think it'll be N'Kosi Perry. And you bring up a good point, Brad. I know a lot of people are over the N'Kosi thing, but you got to realize the hellhole he's been at quarterback like the last 2 years, just like with, this flipping back and forth with Malik Rozier and the bad systems. And look at what he did when he was put in the shotgun against Virginia Tech in 3 quarters. He threw for 450 yards. So, and he played really good this past Saturday or Sunday at the scrimmage. So, I think people are kind of throwing Cozy under the bus and sleeping on him a little for the 2021 season. I get it, but I'm just saying, watch out if he has a breakout year next year. But I don't think we beat Bama.
Marsh.
I got to be honest.
Marsh, who's your leading wide receiver for this year, and who leads the team in tackles this year?
My leading wide receiver this year, I got D. Wiggins. I'm a big D. Wiggins fan, and we talk about it a lot on the podcast. I think he showed a lot of good flashes last year, against Florida State, against Louisville. He shows that he can stretch the field, and we really haven't had a receiver like that who has that size and also that speed, I feel like, in a long time. And I think he's going to become a deep ball threat with Lashley. And in this offense, he can – it wouldn't be crazy if he got 80, 90 receptions. Look at what the SMU receivers did last year. But I think Wiggins leads the Canes in receiving. And then what was the second question?
Who leads the team in tackles?
I'm either going to say Zach McLeod or Gervin Hall. I know Gervin was second on the team last year in tackles, and he led the team in tackles during the scrimmage. He's kind of like Jaquan Johnson, where he's just around the ball, and he's a very good tackler for a safety. And then Zach McLeod, he's just, reliable. He knows where to go. He knows, what holes to fill. And, he's a smart football player. And so I think it would be, those two.
Brad, who you got?
I agree. I got Gervin Hall for defense, leading team in tackles. Exactly the reason why Marsh just said. He proved last year he was heavily in tackles, and he's just going to take that next step this year. And then as far as offense, I'm actually going to say Mike Harley. I think this is Mike Harley's year. I think he's finally going to be put into a system where it's actually going to utilize his talent a lot more. I mean, he only had 2 catches in the scrimmage, but they were both touchdowns. Mm-hmm. So I think him and Derek King have built a very good relationship as soon as Derek King stepped foot on Greentree. And I also think Mike Harley has to step up just because he is the only senior. Yeah, that was some lightning. That was crazy. But yeah.
I don't do lightning. That stuff scares the crap out of me. I don't do lightning.
God.
Yeah, that was pretty close.
Anyways, that was out of nowhere.
Dark horse on offense.
Who's the dark horse on offense? I'll start it off, man. Jalen Knighton. This kid, man, I haven't been this confident in a freshman in quite a while. I mean, 120 yards in the scrimmage. I'm just excited with this offense. I think this is the match made in heaven.
Well, since you took my answer, I'll take I'll take Marsh's other answer, and that's Will Mallory.
Damn it!
Yeah, Will Mallory. I'm gonna be honest with you. You might. I don't know if many people have said this yet, but don't be surprised if Brevin Jordan maybe doesn't play much this year, just because of maybe more injuries. I hope that isn't the case, but. I could see Brevin Jordan maybe not playing as much this year, but I think Will Mallory is that guy. I think he is going to literally be what we all wanted him to be for like 2 or 3 years. I think he's going to make that next step.
Cool.
Well, yeah, those were my 2 answers, honestly. But I'm a huge fan of both those guys. I I have been such a fan of Will Mallory like ever since like him and Brevin came in together, and we actually had a draft guy on the podcast last night, and he said what I've been saying for a long time is that I think Will has a higher NFL ceiling than Brevin, just because of the way he's built, athletic ability, and not saying. I mean, I still think Brevin can be a first-round draft pick, but looking towards the long haul. I really like Mallory's game and how it transitions into the next level. Another dark horse on offense. You know what? I'm going to say.
You're not going to say Lovo's boy?
Who?
Lovo's boy?
No, I was going to say Tate Martell. But
John Chaney?
I will say maybe one of the freshman wide receivers. I think.
Xavier, maybe?
Xavier Restrepo. I mean, he had a 70-yard touchdown off a reverse the other night. And so I also hear good things about, Michael Redding third and Keyshawn Smith. So I think there's a lot of options. And especially since Coach Likens said that they're going to be using, 5 to 6 receivers in this offense. You got Pope, Wiggins, Harley, and Peyton. But, the rest of the guys are true freshmen. So you're going to be – some of those guys are not going to be able to redshirt this season. But – it looks like, Restrepo's making plays and Keyshawn Smith has made plays early on. So I'm going to say either Keyshawn Smith or Xavier Restrepo.
Last question of the night, guys. What is your score prediction? Miami, Clemson. Go.
I'm going to go 35 to 24 Clemson.
Clemson? Okay.
I'm saying 34-20 Clemson.
You know what? I'm going to say 35-21 Miami. I think De'Ara King, if we utilize his legs, and Clemson just doesn't have an answer the whole game with his running ability, I think Miami has something with De'Ara King scrambling with the football. I strongly believe, man, his running ability is something that could shock the ACC that defensive coordinators are not prepared for because they haven't been able to study him at all. Okay, they don't have a lot of recent film on him to put him in a Rhett Lashley offense, which they've never seen in the ACC. It's a very difficult challenge. It can really mess up a defensive scheme. A lot of changes are going on at Clemson offensively as well. They have a new offensive coordinator. Jeff Scott did leave to USF. Hey, we'll see what happens. Maybe Trevor Lawrence doesn't even play this season. I doubt it. I think he will. But hey, watch out, man. I think Miami could upset Clemson. Take it with a grain of salt.
I will say this. I mean,
Coach Rump talked a lot today about one of his quotes today was he said something along the lines of, De'Ara is a lot faster than people realize. And we already think that he's like a cheetah. I mean, the dude can fly. But, hearing Rump say that, it made me very excited. I know he didn't run the ball too much on Sunday, but, we'll see if they implement a few more, like zone reads or drawn up quarterback runs on Saturday. So that's one of the biggest, things I'm most excited about this offense is seeing, what King can do with his legs.
Yeah, man, the fact that he had 4 touchdowns in the air and he didn't have to run that much, that's already something that Miami's not used to. We never have that one quarterback that just takes over in a scrimmage. It's always like a combined effort. We always have to see what all 3 quarterbacks did, like who had 1 touchdown, who had 2, who had the interceptions thrown. De'Ara King doesn't have to worry about any of that. He's that guy, and I think you're about to see something completely different we have not seen.
Hey, I can't wait. We're less than a month, and I don't even think anybody and their mom even realizes it. We're less than a month away, guys. I can't wait. Just talking ball with you guys. Marsh, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yes, sir, brother.
Appreciate it.
Whenever
I know
you
want to do that. Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. And, man, best of luck. I know you have a lot of goals, in front of you with you want to be, in the radio scene in Miami. So, hey, man, I wish you the best of luck, man. And if you ever need anything, just let us know, man. We'll be more than helpful.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely, bro. And just let the fans know, anyone that doesn't know who you are, they must not be connected to internet or social media.
Marsh.
Where they can follow you.
At Hurricanes Marsh. write for State of You and also the Fours Up podcast. So that's me.
Hey.
You'll probably want to unfollow me in about 2 hours, but depends on how feisty I am that day against UF and FSU fans.
The season has come to an end, man. That was an epic video.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man.
That was bad.
Well, we appreciate it, brother.
60,000 views. It was crazy. I don't know what.
No, Phil from the jail.
I had a recruiter DMing me. It was bad.
No, Phil from the Dale hit it on the head. Give it to me.
Yeah.
Anyways, man, thank you so much, Marsh, for coming on, man. Thank you to everyone that joined us this evening. And once again, guys, it's always all about the U.
Yes, sir.